So here we are, Jake, Paula, and Bruce, and Jake and Paula are in Sarasota, right?
Yeah.
And one of the business models that they've been looking at is possibly buying a motel or hotel in Florida and maybe converting it to long-term rentals. Would that be correct?
Yeah, long and probably a mix of long and short term.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And when we're talking about the model, it might be long-term rentals, medium-term rentals, and short-term rentals. But the short-term rentals, I suspect, would be on a platform like Airbnb,
Correct,
as opposed to running a hotel brand, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, the hotel brand operators generally are pretty mercenary, if you know what I mean. I gotta sit down for a second. So what I mean by that is they take a huge chunk of your revenues, give you almost no say in the business. They make all the money and you pay all the costs.
Yeah, I think like our I guess goal is to find one very similar to the one that we have in Stratford. So like small boutique style, right? Like not monstrous.
Yeah, not like 100 units or anything like that. You know, kind of.
Do you remember the one I showed you that was like 52-room hotel for 100 grand?
Yeah,
I'd buy that one, but yes, something.
Too. You know, a client of mine bought it in Ontario, but has really done well with it. So whether Paula, whether it's how many units do you have in Stratford?
9.
9. Yeah. So I would think whether it's 9 units or it's 15 units or even maybe 50, that might be something. That's the range I think you should look at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, because there will be some deals, especially on those motels, where you could transition from short-term rentals, hotel, motel branding to, like I said, short-term rentals, medium-term rentals, and long-term rentals. And the short terms could be on Airbnb. It gives you a lot more control, and you already know how to do that.
I actually should send you our Airbnb links sometime so you can.
Oh, you've never done that. Put it in the chat box right now.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to look at that. So
I'll email them to you because I don't know them off by heart, but
just don't forget, because
I won't. I'm gonna write it down.
There you go.
It'll be very good. I'm really looking forward to that. So the other thing that you might want to look at, because clients of mine are also doing this to a very large extent, is they're buying bed and breakfasts.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So I don't know if I can find it in a hurry, but I went through one bed and breakfast that was available, I think, in Arizona. Did you see that as part of the course that I did? Reward yourself?
Yeah.
Maybe Paula didn't see it.
No, I didn't participate.
I just have to see if I can find that thing, because it is really, really interesting. Was it? Do you remember if it was in the third lecture?
I want to see it was the second.
I think it might have been. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I'll see if I can find it. It's worthwhile looking at. And here we are. See if I could find it. It was in Arizona for sure. And
Yep.
And a lot of Canadians, you know, who are getting sick of the winter, like maybe all of us, you know, are thinking about investing in the States. And I tell them, look, why not buy, you know, a hotel or motel like we've been talking about, or a bed and breakfast, because there are a lot of these bed and breakfasts that are available for sale. Just because we talked about it, I did find this one here. And I'll just share my screen with you guys here in a second. So we just put it on this on the video, so we have it. So this is the one that the famous deal right at the height of COVID, where a 52-room hotel, it's actually a motel, was sold for $100,000 and converted to long-term rentals. He may have some on short-term rentals on Airbnb. I don't know, but most of them are on long-term rentals. So
We wouldn't need to discuss equity partners if this was.
Yeah, if you can buy for $100,000, you don't need equity partners. I get that. And the young fellow, he's not even 40 yet. He's in his 30s. You know, he's worth about 40 or 50 million bucks, so he could certainly do it. And you remember I showed this in the class.
Yep.
This was a great series, I think, on Prime, Goliath. And where did Billy Bob Thornton live in the series? He lived in a motel, so it's not a new thing. And yeah, and here is the other idea, so there are a lot of bed and breakfast in Florida, right, in small towns, okay? And so when you're looking or doing your search, look for hotels for sale, motels for sale, bed and breakfast for sale. And then here's the one that I really liked in Arizona. And I think a couple of my clients are going down to have a look at it. It's called the Blue Star Ranch. It's in Kingman, Arizona. Offered for sale for $895,000. Has a 13-acre ranch with 5 distinct homes on it.
That's cool.
Old West theme. I like theming, right, Paula? You know that. Like, I think Airbnb should be themed, and certainly places like this, it's already themed for you. And look at the bottom here, Paula. 10 additional acres, empty, vacant, perfect for an RV park. Now, an RV park or a tiny home park would be fantastic.
Cool. Very cool.
So cool.
Very cool. Now, here's some pictures from the from this particular listing. I mean, it's really, it's entertainment, right?
It is, absolutely.
And it looks really cool. And of course, they have to have a pretty girl with a horse. I mean, that was part of the sales. And you can see, I love Arizona. It's got the mountains. It doesn't have the water that Florida has, but Sarasota has. But I do love the mountains and the desert. So there you go. And then, I mean, they've already themed it. I mean, they've got it's like Disneyland, only very small. And this is animatronica or whatever. And then here's some more shots of different buildings. And they have something called a caretaker home. So if you bought something like this, Paula, that you could renovate as your place. Kingman, Arizona doesn't have. It's not as warm as Florida in the wintertime, but it's a heck of a lot warmer than London, Ontario.
That's right.
And so there you go. And, I just adore the desert. I really do. I've spent a lot of time in Arizona and I really like it. And here's the aerial shot. So you've got all of these buildings, obviously you can run a horse ranch here if you wanted to. And then you've got 10 acres where you could have an RV park, a mobile home park, a cottage park, a tiny home park, whatever. This is something that you can make real money with. And then here's some more property details. It's a potential in 7 guest rooms, 9 guest room baths. I don't know, they have more bathrooms than they have guest rooms. They have the owner's quarters. It was built in 1990, so pretty new. Last round of 2005. And then they say cash only. Well, yeah. When you're talking about under $1 million these days, they're not interested in a seller take back mortgage. But here's another thing, Paul, that I really liked about this particular location.
That's true, yeah.
Look at that. It's I guess a couple hours from Las Vegas. It's a couple hours to the Grand Canyon. And it doesn't show, I'm sorry, in my slide cut it off, but it's a couple of hours to Phoenix. So if people go to Vegas, to go 2 hours out west, 2 hours is considered next door. Like people who live in Saskatchewan will drive 12 hours to go to a Minnesota Vikings game, And they think, oh, that's nothing, whereas people in London, Ontario, or Ottawa, Ontario, or Toronto think, oh my God, I have to drive to Hamilton. It takes 2 hours. Oh my God, that's far. But out west, that's nothing. So you could pull from the Grand Canyon, you could pull from Vegas, and unfortunately you can't see it really well here, but from Phoenix as well. The other thing that you should do, if you bought a bed and breakfast in a small location, a small town, you have to go to Wikipedia and really check out the demographics. Okay, in the United States, it's very, very, very important to look at the makeup of the city. There are areas with different demographics that have very high crime rates. And there are areas that have much lower crime rates. So you look at the demographics and you have to make a careful assessment of that, because you and Jake, Paula, do not want to invest in a city or a place where you have a lot of crime.
Correct.
Because you cannot create value in real estate. I mean, try and create value in real estate right now in the Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, obviously, this is an impossible situation, but the Americans have a very, 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 very unequal society, perhaps one of the most unequal in the world, where you have some people living in abject poverty, and they look over the fence, especially in Florida, at these gated communities where they have these big houses and nice roads and good schools and good policing, lots of jobs, lots of opportunity. And then you look on the other side of the fence, and it's very, very poor and very devastated, very high crime. So you can't just buy anything.
For sure.
Hotel, bed and breakfast, any other kind of investment you make in Florida, you have to look at the demographics of every single town and city carefully. And I just put some things here. I don't know if you know this. This is the it's a glass floor. It's an overlook that you walk out over the Grand Canyon. You look down. It's like a mile to the bottom. So it's probably a great place if you want to commit suicide.
Yeah.
So the other thing that you want to look for when you're buying a bed and breakfast, a motel or a hotel, is what's around there, right? So I looked at this particular location for a client out in BC, and I said, this would be a great investment, in my opinion, for you, or let's potentially. I think the cap rate on it would be, if you run it properly, would be fantastic. And look at, you're close to the Grand Canyon, you're close to the Grand Canyon Skywalk. I mean, there's so much to do in the area, and so many. So you would bring visitors here once the world opens up again. You'd bring them from Korea, maybe from China, from Japan, from Europe, from all over the world. They'll come to the Grand Canyon. That they'll do, right? And if they come into the Grand Canyon, they need a place to stay. And being 2 hours away, again, out west in the Great Plains, 2 hours is like literally next door. Okay.
For sure.
All right, so that's enough. So I want to go back now to how to structure an investment. And if you find a 52-room hotel for $100,000, we don't need to pay any attention to this. But let me show you. Let me see if I can find the right document here. I wrote this, and I will send it to you after we finish our call today. So this is something I wrote some time ago on how to structure deals where you have investors. And Jake and Paula, you know the difference between an investor and a partner, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like
yeah.
and that's what we want, an investor. We want full control of like how it runs, and
How it's run,
everything, basically.
business decisions, all that stuff.
Yeah, so I actually like investors and I hate partners.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed. Yeah.
And to be fair, an investor who is truly an investor, not a BS investor, but a true investor, he or she doesn't want any say in the business. They just want a return on investment. Plus, they want to invest in people that they like and trust, and they want to invest in projects that they're passionate about. So already that investors don't invest simply because you say, hey, you're going to get a 20% return on investment. You're going to get a 12% return on investment. No. If somebody goes into great detail about, your spreadsheets and everything else, they're probably not going to invest. Those guys are very analytical and they don't make up their minds. And if they do, it's usually no. So yes, it's true, investors want a return on investment. That's true, but they're mainly investing because they like Paula and they like Jake and they love the project. So it's the sex appeal of the project and the trustworthiness and the likability of the entrepreneur that counts to investors. But they don't want it. If the plumbing gets backed up at 3 o'clock in the morning, they don't want somebody calling them. Mm-hmm. They want them calling you. So an investor does not want any say. And if an investor says, oh, I got to have common shares, I've got to have controlling shares, I got to be in 50-50, that's not an investor, that's a partner.
Yeah.
And as you know, in all the businesses that I'm involved with, if I want to make a decision about something, a lease, a refinance, even if I have invested, I just go into a closet, meet with myself, and come out with a decision 5 minutes later.
Yeah, and that's what we want to.
And that's what you want. And honestly, if I were a rich dude again, $1 billion company, which was the case 20 years ago when I owned the Senators, I invested in lots of businesses where I did not want to be a 50-50 partner. And the reason I didn't want to be a 50-50 partner is I'm going to run the business then. I don't want to do that. I'm investing in Paula and Jake. I'd be perfectly happy with a 10%, 20%, 30%, 35% share of the business, but I wouldn't want to own 50% of the business because I want to make sure that there's one controlling mind, which would be yours, and one person who knows where the buck stops. Do you know why most partnerships come to a bad end?
I would guess difference in opinion, but
yeah, exactly. But almost all partnerships end badly. You've heard this, right? There are two chairs in heaven waiting for the first two partners to get there and still like each other. And the reason for that is, let's say, Jake, forget Paula for the moment. Jake, you and I were 50-50 partners in a motel somewhere or an Airbnb somewhere. And first of all, you put up, say, $200,000 and I put up $200,000 and we're 50-50 partners. But maybe the business needs an extra 50 grand. And I'd say, well, Jake, I don't have it. You put the money. So over time, one partner almost always ends up putting in more money. But almost all the time as well, one partner puts in more time. So now Jake is thinking, holy smokes, I'm putting in all the money, I'm putting in all the work. Bruce is loafing off all the time and getting half of everything. And I'm the one who's doing all the work. So Jake gets unhappy. So what happens next, Jake, is that, believe it or not, the project or the business becomes an orphan. You go, screw this, I'm not doing it anymore. So Bruce is a loafer, and Jake gets fed up and says, I'm not doing more. Now, all of a sudden, tenants start leaving, there are no new tenants coming in, there's deferred maintenance on it. And now we start to blame each other. I go, hey, Jake, you're not doing your job, you SOB. And you said, well, you didn't do a damn thing either. Now we start to fight. So almost every time you have two controlling minds, you have none. You need one controlling mind. I mean, the Russian invasion of Ukraine proves it, right? They got like 4 generals or something, 5 generals, all doing different things. Their invasion is thankfully falling to pieces, at least so far. So you need one controlling mind, whether it's a military operation or it's a business. You cannot have two. At least that's my experience. All right.
I totally agree.
Same.
So what you will end up with is you will end up with common shares. You guys know what common shares are, right?
We do, but we don't have much experience with it. But I understand what you're saying. But
so common shares or Class A shares. Okay.
Yes, I don't know anything about that.
Common shares or Class A shares are voting shares. Okay.
Okay.
And those you would typically issue to yourself. All right. So let's say you're buying a $500,000, $1 million property. We're going to actually do a spreadsheet together in a minute, which will show you this. We'll break it down, then I'll send you the spreadsheet.
Okay.
So Jake and Paula, as the founders, are going to issue common shares, controlling shares, voting shares, sometimes called Class A shares, to themselves. To an investor says, I really love this Airbnb or this bed and breakfast that you bought in Kingman, Arizona, if you ever bought that thing, what was it called? The Blue Star Ranch. It's so sexy, it's fun. And one of the things that I offer to investors is I always try and find a little sizzle on the steak. For example, let's say you bought that place in Kingman, Arizona. You say, hey, listen, Bruce, you're investing, $500,000 with us. It's fantastic. We're really glad to have your money and your company as an investor. And guess what? We'll give you and your family a 10-day stay at Kingman Ranch, with all your buddies, for free for 10 days. And as soon as we take it over, you'll book in the first year or two, whatever is convenient for you. You can bring your, I have a big family, 5 kids and lots of grandchildren. You can bring your whole, think about that place. You can take over the whole place, party for 10 days, no charge.
Awesome.
Investors love that. Do you understand that?
Yep, that's a great incentive.
And so you always try and find something that's a sizzle on the steak, because money comes and goes, right? You know, let's say you say, listen, we'll give you a $10,000 bonus on this. Well, they take the $10,000 that maybe they pay some tax on it. They spend it on, I don't know, another computer, whatever. It's gone, right? But a 10-day experience at Blue Star Ranch with all their family and their friends and just having a blast, they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. So if you find something like that that you can do, you know, if you bought a motel or an Airbnb and it had a spa in it, you say, hey, listen, you and your family come down free for, you know, 5 days, stay, don't pay anything. We'll make sure you get all your men and women get, you know, couples massages or whatever's going on in the spa. You'll have a great time. People love that. And it shows you care about your investors. The other thing that you would say to investors is, and you would hopefully mean it, is we take care of our investor money at least as well as our own, if not better. You're actually, because, you know, it's their money and they're trusting you, that you want to treat them, you know, extra special, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, you know, when they get investor money, they treat the investors like crap. The other thing, even though they have no control, investors have no control and no decision making, I give my investors regular updates. And it's not financial updates. I mean, they get a financial update once a year, but they get updates like, hey, you know, and I think, Jake, you know, because you did take that course with me on our building. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute so I can see you guys a little clearer. On our building in Belleville, the one that we're renovating, Paula, we discovered about 3 weeks ago, I didn't discover it, but my contractor and my wife discovered an old stairwell to the basement of this building. So we have, you know, it's a 3-story building, mostly commercial at grade, although there's some residential at grade, and then some apartments on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And the basement was, you know, we thought there's no possible use for the basement, given that, you know, it's about 6'7" ceiling height. So that's not that bad, but it's not 9 foot or 12 foot ceiling height. And it is a bit damp. You know, the building's 150 years old. But when we discovered that stairwell and they went down there, it had been covered up, we think, for 100 years. And when they went down there, they discovered it's like a vault down there with beautiful limestone, 150-year-old limestone walls. And we're going to put a wine bar, whiskey bar at grade. And guess what the 1,000 square feet below is going to be? It's going to be a wine cellar, right? So I have some investors in that project. So I had pictures, and it was like we were excited. And my wife and my contractor, Mark Turner, were super excited. You know, and think about it, an extra 1,000 square feet in a 12,000 square foot building is close to 10% bump up in income. That's a lot. And from the point of view, and we also found that there's a second exit that we didn't even know about. So we can actually bring people into the basement, the public, so they can do wine testing and sampling and whiskey. And we'll have some whiskey, you know, I don't know if it comes in kegs. I don't know much about it, but
Barrels, I think.
Yeah, barrels.
Barrels. You know, so you got barrels of whiskey and you've got lots of wine to taste. You know, I don't know much about alcohol, but that's a discovery. And so, of course, I shared, you know, with our investor group, and they feel part
Included,
of
right? Yeah.
Included. It's part of something special. Okay. So I want you know, we're recording this for a reason, because you're young people, you'll be able to, if you want, you can refer back to this for some time to come. All right. So what we give investors is typically preferred shares. Okay. Do you know what a preferred share is?
Not really. Well, I do.
Non-voting share.
Yeah. If you could explain it, that would be great. I kind of know.
I'll just prove she can read. So preferred shares are sometimes also Class B shares or Class 2 shares. There's different terminology, but you just have to remember that commons have control and preferred shares don't. So preferred shares don't have any votes, but they do have some privileges. They're called preferred shares because they're preferred. So let's say something bad happened to this project or this business, and it was going to be wound up, for whatever reason. Maybe Jake, you and I aren't getting along, and the business has become an orphan, and somebody else has come along. It's going to be wound up, right? So what happens is when the business or the property is sold, there's a certain amount of money available. The first priority is secured debt. So if there was a mortgage on it, a first mortgage or a second mortgage or a third mortgage, those people are going to get paid first. If there's money left over, though, it goes to the preferred shareholders before it goes to you guys. So from an investor's point of view, they want to know, and this is a good thing, that they outrank you. You get all the decisions, but if you screw up and the business is sold and there isn't enough money for everything, we're going to retire the secured debt, and then we're going to give the money to the preferred shareholders. And if there's anything left over, you and Paula are going to get some. Do you understand that?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's fair.
Okay. Now, the second point on the screen here is you get dividend protection. In other words, if you're the common shareholders, you and Paula, Jake, and I'm a preferred shareholder, you could declare, if the company's successful, the business is successful, you could declare a dividend. And you could pay me as a preferred shareholder a dividend without paying yourself a dividend, but not the other way around. Because if it was the other way around, because you have all the votes, you could create lots of dividends for yourself and say to the preferred shareholders, now I got your money, you're not getting a dime. Well, that'll get you into litigation in about 5 minutes, especially in the United States. They have more lawyers than they have anything else.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't do that. I mean, you're just you're Canadian, so you just don't do monkey business like that. But there are plenty of preferred shares that don't have that. So what I'm telling you is this is what I recommend you do. So it's fair to your investors, because I believe in treating them at least as well as you treat yourself, if not better. So you could declare, if you wanted to, a dividend for the preferred shareholders, just as a thank you, without taking anything out for yourselves. Or, of course, you could declare a dividend for all. So the preferred shareholders get a dividend, and you guys get a dividend. That's typically what you would do, but you can't just declare a dividend for yourself. Okay. Now, the next one on the list here is the third point here is the tag along provision. What that means is, let's say there's 1,000 shares that have been issued in this company. 700 of them are common shares belonging to you and Paula, and 300 are preferred shares. So 30% of the business is owned by, say, me and a couple other investors, and 70% of the business is owned by you. 700 common shares, 300 preferred shares. Somebody comes along and says, I love this project. I want to buy it for $10 million, but just for your 70%. So you go, this is great, because you have all the common shares, you have all the votes. So we're just going to buy the 70% of the company that you own and all of the common shares. So now we run the business and we have all the votes. That's not really fair to your minority shareholders. So if there's an offer to the common shareholders, you guys, and there's a change in control, that offer has to go to all the shareholders. So if it was $10 million for 70% of the company, you would divide 10 million by 0.7, and the offer would have to be increased to $14.3 million. 10 million to you and Paula, Jake, and 4.3 million to your preferred shareholders. So everybody can exit. That's a tag along provision. Now, the next one I'm going to highlight in yellow. This one you probably don't put in, but some people do. And as you know, preferred shareholders have no say in the business whatsoever. No votes, no say. That's fine. But if there's certain extreme circumstances that occur, for example, let's say you and Paula Jake decided, no, we're going to stop paying our first mortgage. We're just going to put the first mortgage payments in our genes, right? So maybe your first mortgage is $30,000 a month, and it takes a year for the first mortgagee to catch up with you guys. You put $360,000 that should have gone to the mortgage into your own pants, into your own wallet, and it's really fraudulent, but it's been known to happen. In certain extreme circumstances, preferred shareholders can be converted to voting shares, and they can take control of the company and kick you guys out. Because you're Canadians and you're trustworthy, I wouldn't put that in, because there are dangers for you in that, because some people might try and trigger that provision without real proof. Like if you were in bed with Mr. Trump, I don't actually mean in bed with him, but doing business with, God forbid, if you were doing business with somebody like Mr. Trump, he has been known to make up stories. And so you can have an investor who says, oh yeah, Jake and Paula, they're swindling us like crazy. They do this and this and this, and they can apply to a court to have that provision. It's just so they can kick you out and take control of your successful company. So that's a dangerous thing to put in, but sometimes I have seen it. But I just wanted to make sure. And then I usually put in one more thing, and it's a share buyback provision. At some point, some of your preferred shareholders, I might stand for a minute. My bum is getting sore. So at some point, I'll just stop sharing for another second. At some point, some of your preferred shareholders and your investors might say, listen, the business is going great. It's probably gone up a lot. And I might want to cash out. And you guys go, oh, okay. Now, how do you do that? So what I typically recommend, you put in your shareholder agreement. You guys know what a shareholder agreement is, right?
Yeah.
So you put in your shareholder agreement, rather than litigate over this thing. You definitely don't want to do that. What I generally put into my shareholder agreements is, if there's any kind of a dispute, it will go to mediation first. And if that's not successful, it will go to binding arbitration second. Are you still there? Did I lose you guys? Oops, I think I did.
Back, you're back.
Yeah,
We
I don't know if it
froze
was
for a minute there.
us or
Sorry.
you that froze, but,
Where did I leave off?
we just started talking about shareholder agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the shareholder agreement, what I typically do is I put in that if there's any disputes between the shareholders, any disputes, it goes first to mediation. Oh, I think I lost you again.
We lost you again for a minute.
Yeah, I don't think my internet's doing very well. Bell Canada is outside my house doing something weird. They're drilling, and they have a big rig, and it produces tremendous amount of EMP, electromagnetic pulse.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's really screwing up my internet. So I apologize again.
Oh, that's okay.
No worries.
So I'll sue them. Yeah, it'll get me nowhere. So what I do is I put in the shareholder agreement that if there's any kind of dispute, we're going to go first to mediation, and if that fails, to binding arbitration without recourse to the courts. Especially in the United States, there are 2/3 of all lawyers in the world live in the United States. They have about 3% or maybe 4% of the world's population, and 66% of all lawyers. That tells you a lot. So in the United States, it's unlike Canada. You really have to know what you're doing on the legal side. So you're going to need a really good lawyer, a really good lawyer, because there are a lot of terrible lawyers in Florida, just terrible. Okay, that they don't know what they're doing. They're not well trained, and they'll get you into trouble. So in the United States, it's legals first, a business second. In Canada and most of the world, it's business first and legal second. Because if Canadians get into an argument, typically the worst that happens is maybe they exchange a bit of harsh language. In the United States, everybody has a gun. And I mean, you know, it's legal to carry pistols now in Florida. You can just put them in your jeans and go to the mall. Same thing in Texas. So, you know, you want to make sure that you're safe and that it's clear that if there's any arguments, it goes to mediation and then arbitration. Now, if somebody wants to leave the company, you know, and what you would do is, again, you would agree to establish a value for the shares that, you know, both parties agree to. Oh, I think it's worth $5 a share. You think it's worth $4 a share, and we agree to $4.50. So that's a typical negotiation. Okay, but if you can't agree, you don't sue each other. What you do instead is you guys appoint an appraiser or evaluator. I appoint an appraiser or evaluator, and between the two of them, they appoint a third. Okay? And the three evaluators or appraisers establish a value together as a threesome, and the two closest numbers are averaged to find the final value. What that means is if you were the common shareholders and I'm a preferred shareholder, I want $5 for my shares. You think it's only worth $4, and we can't come to an agreement. So you have a evaluator and I have a evaluator, and the two of them agree to a third. So my evaluator could say, oh, I think the shares are worth $10. Your evaluator might say, look, I think they're worth $4.50. And the third one says, I think they're worth $4.65. So they throw out the extreme. Do you understand? They throw out the extreme. And so the value, so my evaluator, I've hired him for nothing because he put a wild number there. So it forces everybody to compromise. All right. And if you get a lawyer to draft up your shareholder agreement, it will be 80 pages long. And it will not serve you well, in my opinion. So when you're ready to do a shareholders agreement, you reach back to me. I have some that are much shorter and they're fair to all parties, and they reflect a lot of the stuff that I've talked about today. All right. Something else that they're going to put in there is they'll put in there a shotgun clause. Do you guys know what a shotgun clause is?
Yeah, you can explain it. We did one once on a different thing, but you can run through it.
Yeah, well, that is a terrible idea. That's only lawyers could have thought of this.
Yeah, we had so yeah, the lawyers did it. So
yeah, so with all due respect to lawyers, they don't have to live with that shareholder agreement. You do. And I've done dozens, maybe even hundreds of them along the lines I've described, and they work really well. And they avoid a lot of disputes. Lawyers love disputes. You know why? It makes more fees for them.
More money, yeah, exactly.
More money for them. So that doesn't serve you at all. And it doesn't serve your investors either, in my opinion. And so the agreements I structure are for people, not for lawyers. You know, have you heard this one? What do lawyers and sperm have in common? Only 1 in 3 million has a chance of becoming a human being.
That's funny.
It is pretty funny. I told a few lawyers that and they didn't like it. But I don't really like lawyers. And I think where the law and equity part, which is the equity and law are not the same.
No.
But where equity and law part, I always come down on the side of equity. Always. Because I think the law is asinine. How many bylaws have you guys broken? Don't, we're recording this, so don't say it. Don't answer that. But never. How many bylaws have I broken? None. Right? I mean, you know, because I've got a client in Madrid, and the Madrid City Council passed a bylaw last year, I think, late last year, that made it illegal to plant trees on public property. And across from his house and his neighbors was this 10-acre piece of dust that was owned by the city of Madrid. They've never done anything with it. It blows dust and it's a mess. So for the last decade, they have been planting trees. Now it's beautiful. It's got trees, it's got paths where they can walk their dogs, and you know, it's just beautiful. I mean, I could show you pictures of it. The city council found out that somebody had been planting trees on their property. They passed a bylaw making it illegal. Well, you know, my client is not going to go out there with a chainsaw and chop down these beautiful trees that he and his neighbors have planted. It's ridiculous.
Crazy.
So I mean, I don't have to tell you, bylaws are, so many of them are incredibly stupid. Okay, so now we're going to actually do a spreadsheet. Hang on. We'll do it together. Are you having fun so far?
Yes.
Yeah, this is very informative.
Okay, good. I hope so anyway. April 6, 2020. All right, so we're gonna go motel purchase. Oh, I guess it helped purchase in Florida. All right, I'll save it in your file. Can you see my screen okay? Is it too small?
No, it's perfect.
No, it's perfect, thanks.
It helps to be young, eh? I bet you if it was reversed, oh, sorry, if it was reversed, I wouldn't be able to see a damn thing.
I don't know. You should have seen Jake driving down here. It was a little scary.
Yeah.
Oh,
In the dark.
okay.
The night driving is tough these days.
Oh yeah, that's at 70, it's really hard.
Well, we were going through the mountains too, and we're pulling a trailer, and I was like, Jake's like, you sleep while I drive. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm sleeping through this.
No way. Oh, that's scary. All right, so let's just put this in your file. I'm going to do 202. April 6. All right, so you guys help me out here. What do you think? What are you going to spend on this motel, hotel, Airbnb, bed and breakfast?
I wouldn't even really know. I've been kind of looking. There's such a broad range of
You're trying to
stuff.
Make up a number.
Say like 4 million.
Oh, okay, 4 million.
Yeah, we're not getting 100K ones.
Oh,
We want to be like primo location.
okay, I got it. 4 million. All right. And is there any land transfer tax or anything like that in Florida?
That's a good question.
I'm not sure, Bruce, sorry.
I'm gonna look quickly.
All right. Well, I'm going to put closing costs here.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what they are, but I'm just going to make up a number. I'm
Sure.
going to put in $40,000 because there's probably some stupid tax. And legal costs, because it's the United States, it's not cheap. I'm going to put in $5,500. All right, these are all guesstimates, so that's a
For sure.
guess.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, I mean, this is just a sample. And
Yeah.
you'll see there's some really subtle things that we're going to do. All right, so total cost is, I guess, total cost is that. Okay, and then we're going to have some rentals. Okay, undoubtedly you're going to do some rentals. What are you going to put in here?
Oh, geez, Paula,
Oh, God.
how many, let's
Let's
ballpark it like a
say,
unit and then do a per unit cost.
okay, I'm gonna say,
How many units? 20 units?
yeah, let's say,
Yeah, I think 20 units is fair. Let's say,
Okay.
yeah, I like that. Let's say 20 units. I
Uh,
like it. Okay,
At 40K?
40K, yeah, 40,000 per unit.
So that's 800K.
I feel like.
All right, so I'll just do this times that. I got it. All right. So grand total, we'll say, is this. Now, there are programs in the States, in Florida, where you can get 90%, I'm pretty sure 90% financing. You know, I sent you just before we started here stuff about long yards. And Chris is based in Florida as well, I think in Orlando. And there is a program available for, and I can't remember by whom, but I can find it because it's on my computer somewhere, that I think it's 90% financing, not only of the cost to acquire, but the cost of build out as well.
Awesome.
So I'm going to say financing, and I'm going to say, and it might even be 95%, but I think I can't remember, but I will find out. 90% the loan to value.
Financing is so much better in the States.
The financing in the United States is so much easier. My clients in California can get 90, 95, sometimes 100% loan to value financing. It's unbelievable. And in Canada, we're lucky we get 65%. So
yeah, I think we're like 68% average on a refinance.
Yeah, it's not much of purchase price plus improvements build out. Okay, so when it comes time to actually doing some finance, you reach back to me, and I'll put you in touch with Chris, and he'll introduce you to some of the people he's using for financing. It's unbelievable. I'm pretty sure it's 90%. So equal. So what we need, this is our financing, equals minus this times this. Okay, so that's how much dough we require. Oh, that didn't come out right. Oh no, yeah, that's financing. Done. Okay, so you need equity. The amount of equity you need is about 500,000. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put Jake and Paula, and we're going to say that Jake and Paula are going to put in how much equity out of the $500,000. How much equity are you going to throw in? Just give me a number.
I'm not sure. Just like how like what's the best way? Like so.
Well, how much money have you got right now? If you look in your wallet, have you got $200,000 for this?
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to say that Jake and Paul are going to put in $200,000 of cashish. Okay, that's short for hashish. All right, cash. All right. So you got $200,000. Okay, and Jake and Paula are going to issue themselves, I don't know, let's say 2 million common shares. With me on that? And the reason I put in, a big number is, I could put in, you issue yourselves 2 common shares, $100,000 a share. But that's not the way investors like to play around with things. They like something that's a little bit more digestible. So you'll see where I'm going. You'll understand it as we get through it. Okay. So the price per share is this divided by that, right? Price per share. So you guys are the founders of this business. That's the modern way of talking to about yourself. Don't call yourselves president, vice president, chief executive officer. Paula is a founder. Jake is a founder. That's the modern way of talking about yourself. Okay. Yep. So you're the founders. I'll just put that in italics. All right. And you're going to buy 2 million shares, and we're going to call this company. Do you have a name for this company that you're creating?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll call it the Motel.
There you go.
All right, we'll just call it Motelier Inc. All right.
Yep.
So you, it's just a whole placeholder. Motelier Inc. Is buying this building, renovating it, running it, whatever. And I'm just going to put it up here. Some of it will be short-term rentals. Some of it will be medium-term rentals, and some of it will be long-term rentals. The long-term rentals give you steady income. The medium-term rentals are, typically 1 month to 3 month leases. They're a little bit more money than the long-term rentals. And the short-term rentals, of course, you know what they are. It's Airbnb. dot. Okay. You can read what I'm writing, eh?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay. What's the name of that cool place in your new hotel in, or whatever, in Stratford?
The name of our hotel in Stratford?
Yeah.
It's Hotel Julie.
Yeah, it was Hotel Julie. I really like that name. Yeah, you might use the same name. I don't know. You know, Hotel Julie Sarasota, Hotel Julie Stratford, fabulous. So could be hotel or bed. There'll be some fantastic bed and breakfasts, I'll bet, for sale in Sarasota.
There's lots in Florida.
Yeah, we haven't,
I've looked.
yeah.
Say that again, Paul, I missed it.
There's lots of bed and breakfasts for sale, for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, there might be some that are fantastic that you could buy. Okay, all right, so we've done that. Okay, so now you own that. Okay, now we need our deficiency to get all this done is equal to, we needed that, and you put in 200,000. I'm gonna say that, yeah, that's okay. So you need another 284,000 bucks, okay?
Mhm.
But this is where the Mad River thing comes in. Most investors would like to put in some of their money as equity, which is great. But they would also like to put some of it in as debt, so that because they know that the debt's going to come back to them, and the equity is kind of like they're riding on your coattails. Do you understand that? So if the investors, if the investors put in $284,000 as equity, they would own 284,000 divided by that. They would own 58% or 59% of this business. And you guys, with your 200,000, I just move this over, would own 41% of this business. That's a terrible deal for you. All right. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to do the Mad River thing. That's just the name I gave this style of financing. I think I've talked to you guys about it before, right?
Yeah, yeah, go over it again. I remember it being.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get the spreadsheet whether you like it or not. You'll be experts at it in a minute. All right. So under the Mad River stuff, instead, what we're going to say is the investors are going to put in. Let's see. They're going to put in. I'm just making up a number here. Just give me a second. Oh, that didn't make sense. So they're going to put in $66,666.67 as equity. Okay, so now they're going to own this divided by the total. Did I get that right? Nope. I'll come back to that. So they're going to put that in as equity, and then they're going to put in this amount. We needed, that's the deficiency. So they're going to put in the deficiency minus this as debt. Okay. So you remember you needed $484,000 to make this deal happen. You put in 200,000 as equity. That's going to be equity. I'm gonna move this over. All right, so you put in 200,000 as equity. These guys put in $666,666 in equity, and the rest they loaned to the project. Do you understand that?
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay. So this is a loan to the project, not to you, but to the project. And this could be secured as a second mortgage. That's fine. But sometimes what you might want to do is you might want to simply issue to the investors promissory notes signed by the company. Do you know what a promissory note is? It's like an IOU. You ever see Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
Remember the briefcase had cash and then
Yeah.
later on it had the
All the
IOUs?
napkins.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So secured by a second mortgage or secured by a company promissory notes. And the reason you might secured by company.
You don't like M's?
I guess not. Promissory notes, okay? So those are sometimes called prom notes, okay? That's the short form for it. But what it means is that sometimes you don't want to register a second mortgage. And if investors trust you, they say, yeah, just give me a prom note, okay?
Yep.
Now, a couple other things you can do here, secured by prom note. And typically I give, 6%, whoops, 6% to 8% interest on those prom notes. And it's simple interest, right? Not compounded. Or a term. This is just typical of what I do. You can change it to whatever you think is right, whatever the investors like, but investors tend to like this structure. Typical for 5 years. And it's capitalized. You know what that means, right?
Yeah.
So it's due at the end. So let's say I loaned you $100,000. I was one of the investors and I was getting 6%. It would be simple interest. So every year that note would go up by $6,000. You're not paying me because you've got other fish to fry. You know, you've got up to 5 years to pay it back. And so at the end of 5 years, it would be, you'd add another $30,000 to the promissory note and it's due in 5 years.
Yep.
Okay. So simple interest, non-compounded for a term of 5 years, and it's capitalized, so there's no monthly payments, which helps you. All right, now these guys own 66% of the total equity is 66,660,000 plus the 200,000 of equity that you put in. So they now own, which is what I expected, 25% of the business, right? And you, instead of owning 41.3%, now you own 1 minus this number, you own 75%. So that's a much better deal for you. Do you understand?
Yeah.
However, it's also a much better deal for the investor. Because again, the investor doesn't want to own 58% of the business, then he owns it or she owns it. They have to run it, not you. And so you're better off owning 25% of the business than 58%. And if any investor or their accountants or lawyers or bankers argue with you, it's because they're ignorant. They don't know what they're talking about. Here's why it's better for the investor. One, we've talked about it already. One, controlling mind, you guys are doing the work. Great. And $217,000 of their money is coming back to them within 5 years. And they can go out and do another deal like this. And here's the beauty of it. For a very small amount of money, for 66,000 and change, they own 25% of a building that when you bought it was worth $5 million. By the time you guys finish with it, it's worth 12. Right? So now I own 25% of a $15 million friggin' building for $66,000. If I do 4 deals with you guys, I own 100%, so to speak, of one hotel for almost no money.
It's a good deal.
Yeah. No, I-
It's fantastic, and I don't have to do any work because I trust you, right? Now, if you screw up, there's provisions in the shareholders agreement to replace you as the managing partner and maybe sell the building off or do something else with it. But because you guys know what you're doing, this is a terrific deal for you. There's no doubt about that. But it's also a very, very good deal for investors. And don't let those lawyers will say, oh, you know, you're putting in most of the money and you're only getting 25% of the equity. As an investor, you should be saying to your damn lawyer, yeah, that's right. It's a fantastic deal for me. I'm making 8% or 6%, 7%, whatever of my money, my debt, and you know, and I could do 10 of these deals and do no work. All right. So that's one structure, and I have to always put E and OE at the bottom. You know what that means, right?
Errors and omissions.
Yeah, just in case I screwed up, and don't sue me because I don't have any money. I'm just a poor professor. All right, so this is case one. Now we're going to do another one. All right, you game to do one more?
Absolutely.
For sure.
All right.
I'll have a couple quick questions for you.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a quick.
That's
question.
why he says it.
I know, he bugs me with it. All right, so this is now case two. I'll give it a different color. Here, something like this. Okay. Now, there are lots of ways to cut the cheesecake. Okay. The way I did it in case one was probably the fairest to the investor. Right?
Okay.
But if you look at this, okay, here we have the investors have put in $66,000 worth of equity. Oh, and I better boot up the other spreadsheet. Oh, got it wrong. Oh, maybe it didn't. Oh, here it is. No, this is. Oh, God. So this is case one. All right. So let's go back to case one. They put in $66,000. They got pref shares. And you guys got common shares. Oh, I already said that here. Okay, so you guys got common shares, they get pref shares. How many pref shares do they get? I don't need that anymore. How many pref shares do they get? Well, we have 2 million shares represents 75%. So the total number of shares is equal to 2 million divided by 75%. So that's the total number of shares in the company. Did I get that right? Yeah, it looks like. So what they paid per share is equal to this divided by the total number of shares minus the number of shares that you guys have, which is 2 million. Yeah, so I got it right. So they're paying for their preferred shares, right? The same price that you paid. You understand that? So you've treated your preferred shareholders exactly like you've treated yourself. All right. Okay. So now I'm going to have to save it and I have to overwrite. I have to do this again, case two. Nope, can't. Doesn't like it because it's already open, right? Okay, all right. I give up. I'm not doing it again. I have to go back in here. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Oh, Christ, what did I do with it? There we are. All right. I'm just overwriting it. Okay, now I can change it. So this is now case 2. I just don't have to do everything over again. And we'll go with this different color here. All right. So if your name, Jake, was Mark and your last name was Zuckerberg, you would never, ever agree to issue preferred shares at the same price as you issued shares to yourself. You understand that? Mark Zuckerberg is, he controls Facebook with a small number of shares that have all the voting rights, and he voted himself unlimited number of shares at a very low share price, and he charges you as an outside investor a lot more. You understand that? So what you could do, I'm not saying you should do this, is you could simply change. So instead of doing the calculations as I did in case 1, you could say, listen, we're the founders, we're taking a lot of risk here.